In this scripture, David is getting set to fight Goliath. Goliath comes from the Philistine army, and they're coming to try to take out the Israelites. David, who was an unknown at this point, decides to accept Goliath's challenge. And so that's where the scripture will pick up again, 1 Samuel chapter 17, verses 38 through 40. And so it says here, David went to King Saul, and King Saul tried to give David some gear, some body armor to protect himself and things like that. And so that's where the scripture picks up. So it says, Saul put his own clothes on David. He put a bronze helmet on David's head and armor on his body. David put on the sword and tried to walk around. He tried to wear Saul's uniform, but David was not used to all those heavy things. And as a result, David said to Saul, I can't fight in these things. I'm not used to them. So David took them all off. He took his walking stick in his hand and went to find 5 smooth stones from the stream. He put the 5 stones in his shepherd's bag and held his sling in his hand. Then he went out to meet the Philistine. So we'll skip ahead to 1 Samuel chapter 17, verse 49. Reaching into his bag and taking out a stone, he slung it and struck the Philistine, Goliath, on the forehead. And then Goliath went crashing to the ground. 1 Samuel chapter 17, verse 50. So David triumphed over the Philistine with a sling and a stone. Verse 51. After he killed him, Goliath, he cut off his head with the sword. So took Goliath's sword, cut his head off. When the Philistines saw that their hero was dead, they turned and ran. And so I'll give you a few points here. And I've always believed, as a sportscaster, I've always believed that there's more than one turning point in any game, no matter what the margin of victory is. So in a 1-point game, there are several turning points in a game. You know, going back to the NBA Finals, going back to game 2, right? I mentioned the Jalen Brunson free throws where he made 1 of 2. But also, you know, Victor Wembanyama making a bad pass at the end and throwing the ball away, that was also a turning point. And so those are just 2 of many turning points in that game. And then, of course, in game 4, the 29-point comeback with the Knicks, you have many turning points in that game. You know, OG Anunoby hitting a 3, Jalen Brunson hitting baskets, you know, guys chipping in left and right. Jose Alvarado was a guy that got some big baskets in that game. So there are several turning points in that game as well. And so no different here with the scriptures that I just read to you about David and Goliath. There were several turning points here.